Hello. Okay, hi everyone, and welcome to the Scottish Borders webinar. My name is Karen, and I work for ESPC. I'll be hosting the webinar today. With me, I have Ron Hastings from Hastings Legal. He will be answering your pre-submitted questions and anything else that you guys ask along the way. And I also have Ash, who is also from ESPC, and she'll be given an overview of how the Scottish Borders property market is looking at the moment. So we'll go through Ash's update and then we'll move on to the questions. Thank you everyone who submitted the questions in advance. Some of them were similar, so we've grouped them together. But if there's anything that you'd like us to expand on or any questions that come to mind throughout this webinar, please just pop them in the Q&A box at the bottom of the screen. And we'll do our very best to get round to them at the end if we do have time. If not, we will make sure someone gets in touch with you after the event. So please just email myself at marketing@espc.com and we can put you in touch with either Ron or someone else who will be more than happy to answer your questions. At the very end of the Zoom meeting, we're going to have a survey which will pop up in the form of a link. And once this is done, if you could please fill that out, that's really helpful. And we will do our very best to tailor them to just how you like. All right, we will start by going to Ash, who's going to give us our update today.
Hi everyone, thank you so much Karen for that. So as Karen mentioned, I'm just going to talk you guys through some of the Borders overview stats that we've witnessed over the last 6 months. So that's incorporating September through to February, and I'll just give you some commentary. There's quite a lot of stats in here, so if you need a follow-up, just get in touch with us, and I'm sure that Ron can also provide some commentary as to what's been happening in the market. So what we're seeing currently is a really, really strong 6 months in the Borders. So we're seeing really strong buyer demand with sales and listings up across the Borders. But we're still seeing affordable average selling prices, which is good news for buyers. But we're also witnessing homes are still going quite a lot in terms of above home report value, which is also equally great news if you're looking to sell in the area as well. So it's just a reminder that these stats are averages, so they do fluctuate looking at area to area and from home to home. So if you do need any other information on a certain area in the Borders, as Karen said, just get in touch and we can definitely help you, as Ron can definitely do as well. So firstly, I thought we'd have a look at the sales data. So the post-pandemic trend for buyers trying to relocate and move to a more rural setting is definitely showing no signs of slowing down, and that's the latest property market figures definitely evident that. So what we can see during September to February is sales volumes for property in the Borders show that buyers were particularly keen on certain areas. So we're looking at areas like Kelso, Galashiels, Peebles, and also Hoyk, which offer that kind of rural community balance feel with excellent local amenities and strong transport links as well. We saw that 3-bedroom houses in Kelso were definitely the most popular property type in terms of Borders for buyers, with the average selling price of £197,752. A 3-bedroom house in Peebles was also extremely popular, and that was selling on average for £271,777. So when we look at the current average selling prices for the Borders for those 6 months, that is currently sitting at £218,455. But again, as we say, that just fluctuates from area to area. In terms of affordability, we saw that Galashiels was the most affordable area to buy a home in the Borders, and the average selling price for a property there was sitting at £120,315 throughout that 6-month period. The most affordable property type in the Borders could also be found in Galashiels, with a 2-bedroom flat selling for an average of £82,194. So that really makes this area a great option for first-time buyers, for families looking for an affordable starter home, any downsizers, or anyone who's looking for a little holiday home or looking to invest as well. So that's definitely a great place. By contrast, if we have a look at Duns, that was definitely the most expensive location throughout that 6 months period for Borders, with an average selling price of £338,545. So We have a look at selling times for the borders. Again, we can see that demand has remained really, really strong over the last 6 months. The average time for a property to be listed and then to go under offer has reduced quite dramatically. Again, that's just shown that there's really strong buyer demand. So from September to February, we saw an average time to under offer for properties coming on sitting at 18 days, which is absolutely phenomenal. So again, it's just shown that people are really, really interested in getting their offers in there really quickly. 2-bedroom houses in Kelso sold the fastest, and that went under offer in an average time of just 8 days. So yeah, that's super, super quick. When we have a look at closing dates as well, just to really show how popular properties are becoming, we had 28.2% of properties that were listed for sale on the borders went to a closing date. So that's actually up from 15.2% if we compare that to the last year, and also up 5.1% on 2 years ago. And that's again just really promoting that strong buyer demand for homes in this region as well. So when we're having a look at how much people are actually paying over the home report value, buyers in the borders paid a higher percentage of the home report valuation on average, and again, it's just making sure they're acting quickly to secure their chosen property. So during that period, the borders paid on average 6.5% for the last months, on average over that home report valuation. So I think it's safe to say that we can see competition remains really high across the region. Homes are selling really quick over the last 6 months. We're seeing closing dates now become more common, and buyers are still paying that premium over home report valuation as well. I think we expect to see this continue into spring and summer months. And yeah, we're seeing both that it's a really healthy market for both buyers and sellers at the moment. And its popularity post-pandemic appears that it's really remaining consistent as we move further into 2022. Ron, I don't know if you have any thoughts on any of those figures. Is that reflecting what you're seeing as well?
Just reflecting on that, I think you've got to bear in mind with the borders, you're dealing with a much smaller number. So whenever you're dealing with percentages, that can be exaggerated. It's a bit like a poll, a poll of 100 people as opposed to a poll of 10,000 people. You get the bigger the numbers, the more accurate the percentages are. So I think that comment applies particularly to the stats that you brought out in Duns. I think the people of Duns would be pleased, but rather surprised to find that they are the top priced area in the borders. I think what you also, when you're looking at towns, you've got to bear in mind the makeup of that town. So mill towns, for example, such as Gala and Hawick, have a higher percentage of affordable homes, former council housing and town properties, as opposed to more substantial properties with maybe smaller ex-council house developments. So that can sway the figures considerably, but there we are. And in terms of affordability, I've certainly said flats are, I'll come on to this in my own figures, but when you figure for 2-bedroom flats in terms of Gala compared to Kelso, for example, a 2-bedroom flat in Kelso is now about 120,000. So, you might get a 2-bedroom flat in Gala Shields for 80,000 or less. But it's all about location.
Location.
You know what?
Thanks so much, Ron. So that's just an overview of what's been happening. But I think if anyone wants any more details, I'm sure Ron can help you in those specific areas. Again, just to reconfirm, it does fluctuate, as Ron was saying there. So you can just get in touch if you want anything else. But that's my section over.
Thank you very much, Ash. And don't worry if all that information felt like a lot. We do have this on our website with our house price reports, and we will be popping this on YouTube after. And I do believe the marketing team are putting out a condensed Scottish Borders report in the coming days. So do keep an eye out for that. We're going to pass over to Ron now to do our question and answer section. So the first question for yourself, Ron, what areas in the borders are showing the highest increase in prices?
Okay, well, this is the trick question that I always get thrown at me, which potentially will cause some inter-town rivalry in the borders, which we are renowned for. But the good news here is actually increases apply across the borders. The whole of the borders has benefited from the price rise from the point of view of sellers anyway, not just the traditional popular hotspots of Melrose, Kelso, and the like, Peebles as well. Prices achieved rather depend on demand, obviously. Generally, this has been driven by buyers from, we'll come on to this later, but the buyers from out with the borders coming from higher value areas, such as Edinburgh, and also from the south. So that's skewed things quite a bit. Kelso flats, I say they probably increased in value by 10 to 20% in the last year. A two-bedroom flat you could have picked up for nearer 100,000, you're now 100, 120, 125,000 in Kelso. One-bedroom flats are now about, recently sold a couple at 90,000. Melrose always popular, obviously. You know, that's the sort of honeypot. But Melrose includes St Boswell's and Bowden, and basically it has a wide range of properties. There's actually a very limited number of properties available in Melrose itself, but there's got a hinterland, a bit like a lot of the towns which come under Melrose, and they all are commanding big properties. Selkirk as well, hardly anything available in Selkirk. The properties up the valleys, as we say, Yarrow and Ettrick Valley, they really appeal, and again, people are after the location. At Jedburgh, that's seen a resurgence in buying activity. It's maybe in recent years languished a wee bit behind others along the high street anyway, but we've definitely seen that coming up with a big regeneration thing going on there. And it's got some lovely big old properties outside, and again, part of the hinterland. Hoyk as well. Hoyk's got some great old former mill owners type properties and country properties, and includes lovely villages and roundabout like Denham and Minto and Cavers and Kirkton. Attractive locations, they look great, particularly if the weather gets better. And of course, you should bear in mind with these stats that we've had a very mild winter, which benefits the country, because if it's rough, then people get worried about, will I get snowed in, and they don't travel for viewings, quite apart from any pandemic issues. It's more weather issues, and they get frightened off by the BBC, of course. If there's a flake of snow, I think it's going to be, you know, the beast from wherever it's coming from, east, west or north. But the big news in the borders has been the coast. The coast has been seen, the coast and the countryside. So Berwickshire, traditionally a quiet area. You touched on Duns. You know, there's loads of space in Berwickshire, loads of fresh air around about, and the coast. Well, obviously you get fresh air at the coast, and that has been a big attraction for buyers. Where we've seen in the past years up to 50% over the home report value for some particularly enthusiastic people moving in from afar. But yeah, Eyemouth and Coldingham, St Abbs, all up the Berwickshire coast, attracting really good prices. So yeah, all over. Highest, I can't tell you what the highest is, because it's difficult. I could give you examples from everywhere in the borders.
Brilliant, thanks very much, that's exciting. What areas are good for buy-to-let and showing the highest yields?
Well, prices are high, so yields ain't. So basically, generally a town location with services and transport links will do better than rural locations. Perhaps opposite, that's the flip side of the coin. Buyers are looking for rural locations and tranquility, and for rental property, generally they're wanting to be a bit more connected. So yields are low because prices are high. There is a steady demand, however, from frustrated buyers, including sellers who basically have got a good offer, so maybe taking an offer on the house hoping to buy, but they can't find anything to buy, so eventually they give up and rent. And also buyers from the south who are stuck with that lovely English legal system that takes an age to ever get to commitment, and quite often they will see the light and decide that they're going to sell and go into rented as cash buyers for a while. But the good news for landlords is, or investors, is that the trouble with folk that are renting these days under the new private rented arrangements is that they can just give 28 days notice and move out. So if you get the hint that someone's going to be using it as almost like a short-term let, then I mean, rents can be adjusted accordingly. Basically, you could just market specifically for that. There are obviously a number of people who are out of, just simply can't afford, they've been priced out of the market. So again, they're looking at renting as a home. And there's certainly, if you're looking for a longer term let, or potentially longer term let anyway, there's definitely an increasing pool of potential tenants. So some folk who are maybe trying to get on their feet, maybe at the early stages of a relationship, don't want to commit, maybe not to the relationship, but maybe don't want to commit to the expenses of of buying a property and the complications that go with that. They might well look to rent and just see how things go for a while. Don't leave it too long though, because the market is getting away from you.
Thank you. And the next question for yourself, what home report premiums are you seeing on properties in Melrose?
Well, we've obviously got a Melrosian asking these questions, but so generally Melrose, you can get some really extreme examples of prices in the Melrose area, because that really is, as I said before, one of the honeypot areas that is well known for the borders, the iconic Eildon Hills. You know, Melrose 7 is coming up in a couple of weeks' time, which I will be going to. But you know, it gets great publicity, so people know of Melrose and they know of Kelso. Sometimes they don't know of many other areas in the borders until they search the web. So 10 to 15% would probably be about over the home report value, probably about right. But we did see some extremes in the early days of the pandemic. I know of, so the traditional 3-bedroom house in Melrose valued home report at 295, which the owner was astonished at to start with. I was even more astonished when it sold for 400 within one day and concluded misses within 6 days. So you know, that sort of thing happens. But also, apart from Melrose, St Boswell's achieving significant amounts over. That was sold to a buyer from the south. Another one, St Boswell's, buyer from the south. So that's 35% over home report value. Another one, a lodge just outside Melrose, St Boswell's about 15% over, from 390 to 450. And flats in Melrose, you're talking what you were talking at the beginning of the pandemic, a 2-bedroom flat in Melrose, maybe in the high street, 125, 130. That would certainly be 150 now, 160 as a starting point for offers over. You know, we just got one going on today at 3-bedroom flats, a home report 180 in Melrose. So there we are. So yeah, it's Melrose is just one of a number of markets that's seeing significant increases.
Brilliant, thank you. The next question is, what is the average selling time for properties going under offer?
What is the average selling price, did you say, or time? Time. Well, Ash has already covered this. I can only go by one statistic. She's got everyone's statistics. So just to focus in on our statistics for Q1 from January to March, bearing in mind March is not yet finished, we've seen an average, I got to Donna to calculate this for me, we've seen an average of around 14 days, which is pretty much what your experience is saying. So it's actually been more a case of trying to hold properties back from selling on the first day or whatever of the first really good offer that comes along, and actually just seeing, well, you've asked us to market the property. If someone's as keen as that on day one, maybe only having seen it on the video and not even viewed and made an offer of 75,000 over the asking price, a fair chance that they will still be around next week. So give the others a chance to go round. And even if you end up accepting that offer, at least you've marketed it and you've allowed. There used to be a thing where closing dates were justified by selling agents by saying it gives everyone a chance. And it said, oh, it was really for the benefit of the seller. Well, it is for the benefit of the seller, but it's also for the benefit of the other clients that we've got, who are customers, basically. And as estate agents, they might not actually be our clients in the traditional sense, but they are still our client base. And if you disillusion them, then you will eventually reap the benefit of that. So do try to keep, have to do what the seller wants, but do try and make it available. And I say 14 days, just to give you an idea, in March, we've sold 26 units, and we're not yet at the 26th of March. So, one a day is not bad for down here anyway.
Great, thank you. And the next question. Where do most buyers come from, and do you see the drift from the south continuing post-pandemic?
Yeah, well, this is becoming a little bit of a stuck record, but because the study is the same, we looked into this as well for Q1. 50% of the buyers of our properties came from out with the borders, and the breakdown of that was actually 34 from the borders, 9 from Edinburgh, 7 from the north of England, 8 from the south of England, and 9 elsewhere in Scotland. So do we see it continuing? Yes, don't see any end in sight, frankly, at the moment, although, as I mentioned, buyer frustration could start to kick in. And one of the factors there is the different timescales that we're operating within the UK, the different legal system and different processes. We've got a fast-selling market, but also we're moving from marketing to the legal side to hopefully a commitment. And with a cash buyer, you can potentially get a commitment within a day or so. If there's a mortgage involved, it's 6 weeks. If you've got someone who's estate agent in England says it will sell very quickly, well, it might get a buyer, but then you don't know if there's going to be a chain. Even a cash buyer, it could take them 2-3 months to get through the processes. So the tail wagging the dog, if that's the right expression, is the English legal system. Unfortunately, is a real downer for English buyers, and potentially they could get frustrated at not being able to have a shot because they're not in a preferred position. So, and it's the sellers and the selling agents have to do the right thing. We've reputedly 50% of English transaction chains fall through. 50%. I don't have the stat, but in my own experience, we're probably nearer 5% up here. So, the proof's in the pudding. And maybe that's why, yet again, there's noises from down south that I'm looking at tweaking their system to try and make things, to improve things. So very important when you're selling to a buyer is to qualify them. We need to know our client, we need to know our buyer as well. We need to know the source of funds. That's something that traditionally that maybe estate agents in Scotland haven't particularly looked into. When we've asked for source of funds, we've certainly been told that they're asked for all the time in England, but very rarely in Scotland, very rarely. So source of funds, it's important for your compliance to know the source of funds. But also know it's important to know, to get a better idea if you're selling whether the transaction is going to stick. Yeah, I think you what was the question? Yes.
Yes.
It is very likely that the demand will continue, subject to that very long qualification.
Brilliant, thank you. No, the more information we can get, the better. So that's perfect. Thank you very much. And this question you've already touched on a little bit, but we can expand on it a tad more. As we're being told to live with COVID and exercise personal responsibility, do you still see a place for virtual viewings as a first step? And what changes has adapting to the pandemic brought to marketing a property in a place like the Borders?
Well, that was a very long question, and I take the hint that I should cut down my answer, so thank you for that. We have touched on it. Yes, we're talking about virtual tours here. So virtual tours basically was seen as the first step, as recommended during the pandemic, And I have to say that we, 2 years ago, started videoing all our properties, and we have continued to do so and will continue to do so. Have had a discussion previously on a forum where an Edinburgh agent had said, I think almost a year ago now, that they're deciding not to bother with them anymore. I can understand that, but you've got high levels of demand anyway, and maybe people are quite local. But as I've said, 50% of our buyers are coming from out with the borders, and it's a long way to come. Just in the chance that you might be at the races when it comes to putting in an offer. So if you get a chance to cut down the numbers, obviously there's a benefit to sellers in that cutting down the numbers is less people going around their house. Even leaving aside the health issues, it's a hassle having people around your house, or even having accompanied viewings, which a lot of sellers now go for. It is a hassle. You have to keep the place nice and tidy, and not like a show house, surely. Of course, like a show house. But it also helps buyers. They can assess the property and see if they're wasting their time, if they're interested. And the added thing to that, I would say, is it's very important, particularly for us in the borders, is to be able to show not just the house, but show the location. So if you can show within the video setup what's round about, so we're very fortunate, very good drone facility that our videographer does, Alistair. So if you can show where the house sits, what's round about it, and it zooms off into the distance to show you the lovely hills and the coast or whatever, they get an idea of what the place is like. Maybe places they've never heard of, because they've only never heard of Melrose and Kelso. So it helps. Basically, I would say we've no plans to do away with that, and it's an enhanced marketing experience that buyers and sellers love.
Brilliant, thank you. And the next question: what are the benefits of using a solicitor, estate agent, and advertising through ESPC for a property in the borders?
Well, declare an interest here. Obviously, I am an ESPC agent, and I am a solicitor estate, and we are a solicitor estate, so I'm a solicitor as well. Yeah, the benefits of using an ESPC solicitor estate agent is we know the market. We know the market because we're dealing in the market day in, day out, both buying property and also selling property. So we know how many clients have been disappointed at closing dates. We can give guidance on what the seller can expect when they're marketing a property, but we can also give guidance when you've got a client who's buying a property as what they're going to have to pay to achieve what they want. So we've got a feel for the market, basically. So that's one of the advantages. Now, so that's an advantage over a normal estate agent, because a normal estate agent doesn't get involved in the buying process. So I would say that's a big advantage in the current market. But also we get involved in the legal side of it. Now, if you have the time and if you get inclination, and it certainly is of benefit to look into the legal side before you just, well, this at the same time as marketing. It's a good idea if you check the title, and that can be easily done. Most titles are registered now, so you can go into a service with Registers of Scotland and actually look at the land certificate and see that the person you're dealing with actually owns the house. That's a good idea before you waste a lot of time with them. You can get that for about £4 or £5. You can also get a plan from the land certificate, which shows you the boundaries, albeit for smaller properties, it's not terribly informative. And also any title conditions that are in there. And sometimes you'll actually find that the house title is not what the person that's consulted you thought it was. I mean, the mum might have forgotten that half of the house had been transferred to her children, who are the beneficial owners. So they have to be involved in the process as well. So that's one of the advantages. Now, on the ESPC front, what I would say is a huge advantage of being with the ESPC is you get the benefit of economy of scale. You may be a relatively small fish in a big pool, but you can you can be like a big fish in a small pool in the borders. because you've got all the benefits of all the research that Ash and her colleagues do that we don't have time to do. You've got all the benefits of the marketing that they do to the public to promote the properties and promote the awareness of the ESPC as the foremost place to sell your property in the east of Scotland and borders and increasingly other parts of the country. But also it's a win-win situation because we're also, ESPC are very good at identifying with buyers, and we call them purchasers in Scotland, but we know what we mean, buyers, and basically relating to buyers and providing them with helpful information that helps them in the process. So you've got lots of advice for first-time buyers and information on your website, which is obviously mortgage advice as well. You have quality control. You do secret shopping on us and sneaky phone calls to make sure we're saying the right things. So yeah, it's very important. I think that we have the backing of the ESPC in places like the Borders, and I would say particularly for the small and medium-sized firms, they don't have their own maybe marketing department and other resources because they don't have that, you know, I say economies of scale. So I hope that is sufficient, and I will now get a free advert in the next magazine.
That was very kind. Last question, just to let the attendees know if there is any questions that you want us to expand on or anything that's came to mind throughout this webinar, please just pop them in the box if you can within the next 5 minutes or so, and we'll do our best to get round to them at the very end. But the last of our pre-submitted questions for Ron is, do you project house prices will continue to increase at this rate over the next 12 months?
Well, wait a minute while I get my crystal ball out here. This is my Mystic Ron. You're probably too young to remember Mystic Meg, so that little joke was completely lost on you. Yeah, well, it's not just me. I mean, yes, supply and demand says it will continue. Ash says it will continue. So what more do you need? There is obviously some concern with the rising cost of living, potentially interest rates going up, but they are at they're no longer at a historic low because they've gone up a wee bit. But I mean, I'm old enough to remember them at 15% for about 48 hours. So they're relatively low and affordable mortgage rates. And obviously the cost of living is going up, so that the disposable income available in housing is going to affect things. But maybe that can be offset a wee bit in terms of affordability, because now home report values are increasing to reflect the real world, the real market out there, and people that are depending on a mortgage at least can have the prospect of being able to borrow nearer to the home, you know, what they're required to buy the property, because you can only usually borrow up to the maximum of the home report value or a percentage of it, and where home report values were out of sync with the market, basically, well, I think there's a flurry of first-time buyers actually just going to new builds because basically the valuation was what the builder said the house was worth, and the surveyors generally tended to agree with them, and you would get it for that price. So there wasn't, you weren't in competition with the others who were perhaps cash rich and be able to afford to pay well over just because they could.
Brilliant, thank you. Okay, we've got a couple of questions that have came in throughout the webinar. So if you're okay with it, Ron, I'll ask them to yourself. If you want to chip in, Ash, with anything, please feel free to do so. Otherwise, if the questions need a bit more of an expanded answer that we need to maybe research for you, we can send you them via email, but we'll do our best to answer them now. So the first question, is there a big demand for off-plan purchases?
Is there a big demand for off? Now, I suppose to define what an off-plan purchase is, I take it what we're talking about there is a new build that hasn't been built yet, and the builders are proposing a price and selling you a dream of a house that is going to turn out like it's supposed to turn out. Is there a big demand? I've not seen a big demand for that. There's still not. I don't think there's sufficient investor interest from developers who would buy up, and the way they used to before 2008, buy up properties and convert and then sell at a profit or whatever. And there's a few folk got their fingers burnt in 2008 with buying off plan, and it took till 2020 whatever to get back up to their purchase price again. So that's probably the one negative I've said, but there you are. Must be true.
Thank you. And I've got another question here from someone watching. We have family in the Borders, so we're planning to sell our own property and then moving in with the family while we search. Are sellers more keen to go with buyers who are ready to go with no delay or a chain?
Yes, I think you're very well informed on that one. That's exactly the position that you would be in. But the one thing I'd caveat against that is don't get too comfortable in the rent-free family home, because you might find that your savings and what you're going to pay out are overtaken by the rise in the market. I've seen quite a few people come across with a budget of say 350,000 to get the type of house they wanted, and they're finding it very difficult because the market is getting away from them.
Brilliant.
So yeah, that's the one caveat on that one.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. And thank you to everyone who added in some extra questions here. We hope you found this really informative and enjoyable. And remember, we will be popping this on YouTube just if you want to watch it again or send it to friends or family who might benefit from this as well. Thank you, of course, to Ron and Ash for all the information provided today. And like I say, if there's anything else you want to know or us to expand on, please just drop an email to myself at marketing@espc.com and I'll forward you to the relevant person. Please fill out the survey. We do have future events, and if we can tailor them to however you like, we'd really appreciate the feedback so we can do that. And also, we do have more events coming in the next month. Our next one is the property market update, which will focus on Scotland as a whole and all the markets we cover. So the Scottish Borders will be included, but that's more of a generic look at how the market is performing, and that's on the 5th of April. We do have other events, so if you just go to the events section on our website, you can see everything available, and you can sign up, of course, for free, and they will run at lunchtime, like this one. Thank you again for everyone who attended, and we hope to see you soon. See you later.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.